For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you've really
run out of time, and we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard. What are you celebrating tonight? Tonight, the word is contribution. Now, I'm not asking you to contribute to tonight's show. I'm talking about the people who contribute, the people who contribute to our business, the people who contribute as an audience member, the people who contribute as entertainers. And today we are celebrating International Women's Day. And I can't think of a better entertainer to celebrate incredible women who have made great contributions to the theater than Lee Roy Reams. Not only has Lee Roy Reams worked with and celebrated some of the greatest women in show business, but he has also worked with Jerry Herman, who has also written some of the greatest songs for some of the greatest women in show business and some of the greatest songs for women. But before I bring our entertainer on, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about on both counts. Here he is.
Welcome to La Cage aux Folles.
Takes a man to wear a boa like this. Well, if you can't hide it, decorate it! It's rather gaudy, but it's also rather grand. And while the waiter adds your check, he'll kiss your hand. The clever gigolos romance the wealthy matrons at La Cage aux Folles. It's slightly 40s and a little bit new wave. You may be dancing with a girl who needs a shave, where both the riffraff and the royalty are patrons at La Cage aux Folles. La Cage aux Folles. The maitre d' is dashing Cage aux Folles. The hat check girl is flashing. We import the drinks that you buy, so your Perrier is Canada Dry. Eccentric couples always punctuate the scene. A pair of eunuchs and a nun with a marine. To feel alive, you get a limousine to drive you to La Cage aux Folles. Here at La Cage aux Folles, the stars of yesteryear are always alive and well. Meet Mae West. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you came up to see me here tonight at La Cage aux Folles. Is that a program in your lap, honey, or are you just glad to see me? You know, I used to have a cattle ranch out here. Yeah. But I had to sell it. I couldn't keep my calves together. How you doing, maestro? I didn't recognize you, honey. Standing up. It's bad and beautiful, it's bawdy and bizarre. I know a duchess who got pregnant at the bar. For who is who and what is quite the question at La Cage aux Folles. Oh, well, hello, darlings. It's Cholula Bankhead. Am I the only one here tonight old enough to remember me? Here we are, darlings, at the beach of Saint-Tropez. My God, I thought it was Venice Beach. All those naked young men up there, sunning themselves. If you're toasting that for me, darlings, I'll take it rare. Go for the mystery, the magic, and the mood. Whatever you do, darlings, avoid the hustlers and the men's room and the food. For you get glamour and romance and indigestion and the cage au La cage au a Saint-Tropez tradition. Cage au you'll lose each inhibition all week long. We're wondering who left that green chevauche gown in the loo. Hello. It's Marlene Dietrich. Do you mind if I sit on your instrument? Do you remember me from the war? Do you like my wigs? There's only one wig better looking than this wig, and it's this wig. You go alone to have the evening of your life. You'll meet your mistress and your boyfriend and your wife. It's a bonanza, it's a mad extravaganza at La Cage aux Folles. You cross the threshold and your bridges have been burned. The bar is cheering, for the Duchess has returned. The mood's contagious, you can bring your whole outrageous entourage. It's hot and hectic, effervescent and eclectic at the Cage.
And that, my friend, is Covington, Kentucky's greatest export. Hello, Leroy Reams.
Yay! Hello, my dear friend.
I remember the night that, of course, that's Jerry Herman at the Hollywood Bowl, pay-per-view television special. Boy, how times have changed. I remember the night that aired. What are your memories when you watch this again? I can never get tired of watching this.
Well, the big reason is because it was about Jerry, because I loved him so much, and he was responsible for so much of my career, and also to be able to honor him at the Hollywood Bowl. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And it was a spectacular night with a lot of stars. And we were having so much fun backstage. And it was really a concert, you know. Nothing was taped. That was live.
It was live.
I mean, there was no pre-record. It was done that night. And what you saw was what you got.
And Don Pippin there, it was great to see him conducting and everything. I was talking to a dear friend today, Jackie Parker. I think she's watching right now. And she said to say hello to you. Yes. And she brought this up. And I want to talk to you about this because today is International Women's Day. And Jerry Herman wrote so many great songs for women. Let's talk, for example, for Mame, for example, If You Walked Into My Life. This great song written for a woman who is contemplating if she made the right choices in raising a young boy. But then, of course, Edie Gourmet has a #1 hit record with the song, giving it a whole different meaning if she made the right choices with the right men in her life. You also had this incredible relationship with Jerry Herman that went beyond just being an entertainer on stage, not a performer, an entertainer. How did that relationship begin, and how did it continue over the years?
Well, it happened because of Carol Channing. I had done Lorelei on Broadway with Carol, and a couple years later she called. I don't necessarily have to do her voice. If you want me to, I will, or you could.
Well, it's ingrained in both of us, so let's go there.
The phone rang seriously, and it went like this: "Hello, Leroy. It's Carol. Carol Channing." Like we didn't know. She always said that. She said, "Darling, I'm going to do a revival of Hello, Dolly, and I want you to play Cornelius Hackle. But darling, Jerry Herman doesn't know you, and Lucia Victor, the director, don't know you, but don't worry, darling, you got the job." And that began. And the first day that I sang out there's a world outside of Yonkers, I'm bragging, but it's true. And Jerry jumped up and Jerry said, "That is the voice that I hear in my head." He said, "That's the voice I wrote that song for, and the first time I've heard it sung that way." So that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And in one of our many conversations, Jerry told me that he was a woman's composer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I think I write for women, Dolly, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "That's not true, Jerry." I said, "I do your stuff all the time. So men can do your stuff." I do. And that began him asking me to accompany him on these little gigs that he would do. He would bring me along, he would play the piano, and I would sing. And that developed into the show that we eventually did at the Booth Theater called An Evening with Jerry Herman.
I was there.
We first did it with Karen Morrow and then Florence Lacey. And since then, I've done the show with Clea Blackhurst, Karen Mason, some of my wonderful friends. And I've also done it by myself. And it's a chronological story of Jerry's, which, by the way, he wrote. And it's his words put into his life story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so honored to be the keeper of that because it comes directly from Jerry. And it all began by him talking about women, that, because he had such a close relationship with his mother, as I did too, and I'm sure you did too.
Mm-hmm.
Just so close with our mothers. And that's why that feminine thing is there. And also, I think that having sisters and all of that, I have a great rapport with women. And with the many ladies that I've directed in Hello, Dolly, it was always a great experience. And I work with men as well as I do women. It's not that. It's just that I have this affection for women, and I celebrate them every day of my life. And my act that I'm going to be doing yet again, I'm going to go back and rediscover all of that through the years in Kentucky with my mother and all the women, and of course then through my career. And the whole thing started with Jerry talking about being a woman's composer lyricist. And many times I think that we need to stress over and over again the brilliance of Jerry as a lyricist. Because many people, because his melodies are so infectious, that they forget what a great lyric writer he was.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for those of us who love him is to carry that on and to perform in front of people and show them the content of the lyrics, like you were talking about, If He Walked Into My Life. He actually wrote male lyrics for that too,
Oh, yeah, I know. Absolutely.
And those were, where's that girl with a promise? The girl who tried to show me what love could be. Where's that girl with a promise? And why do I think the someone to blame is me?
Now, I also want to mention that, and I had the great pleasure last week, speaking of women, you're going to be sharing the stage with Rita Gardner.
Yes.
And I was surprised to hear that thanks to Alex Rybeck, you talk about matchmaker, you two had never really worked together before.
And the thing that brings us together that brought up, I was going through my days of being in Kentucky, then going to the University of Cincinnati, College Conservatory of Music, and the shows that we did at school, which I directed and choreographed in my junior and senior year. And one of the first shows we did at the university was The Fantastics. and it was 1961. And the show opened in 1960. And our professor, Paul Rutledge, went to see it off Broadway, fell in love with it, got in touch with Schmidt and Jones, and said, would they give him the rights to do it at school? And they did. And we were the first production outside of the original off-Broadway production. So in my living room, I used to sing along with Rita Gardner, Jerry Orbach, and not knowing, number one, that Jerry Orbach would become a lifelong friend and very influential in my career and life, and that Rita Gardner, who I sang along with, now we're going to be singing together. And it's just really like a fantasy come true. Really is.
It's amazing. As I said earlier, I mean, the word for today is contributions. I've got a cabaret gift package that I put together. And if you use the word contribution in your comment section, you may win that package. And we'll give that out at the end of the show. I have been doing this thing where at the top of the show, I start with a random question. Not that you and I need an icebreaker. So I don't even know what the question is. So I haven't even looked at it. So God help us where we're going to go with this. But the first question is, if you could only eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pot roast.
Pot roast.
I love pot roast.
So when are you going to come over for dinner and I'll do a pot roast for you?
Well, whenever you ask me.
After the show, we'll set this up. I want to say
I've never said no to you, Richard.
I know you haven't. And I will share this. One of my favorite memories is you and your beloved Bob and Beth Fowler and Jack coming here for dinner one night. We sat down, if you remember this, at 7:00 for dinner. And at 1:00 in the morning, Bob said, we have to go home. Because the stories, I mean, you have worked with everyone. And I pulled the word contributions again, because not of monetary contributions that I'm expecting tonight, but because of the contributions of the people who have made contributions in your life. And these people who you've made contributions in their life. And because this show that you're going to be doing at Feinstein's 54 Below, I want to talk about these people along the way. You're from Covington, Kentucky. Let's start with the first woman in your life, your mom.
My mom.
And her encouragement in terms of putting you on the path that led you to New York and eventually Broadway.
Sure. Well, you know, I tell this story all the time. It's a true story. My mother had 7 children, the last of which was me. She had 5, 2 years apart, then a 9-year absence, then my sister, and I came 16 months after my sister. So my sister and I were kind of reared as only children. We had our older sister, Betty, around the house, and she was just divine. So I talk about all of that. But my mother, I just naturally, Richard, when the music was on, I was in the middle of the floor singing and dancing. And that started it all. And my mother, although she only had a 6th grade education in a country schoolhouse, she came from a farming family, she had a great instinct and she was extremely bright. So she saw my interest. So I went to dancing school, and I can go on because the first school I went to, they advertised in the paper that if you sign up for so many lessons, you got a free pair of tap shoes and a promise you would be in the recital. And the sign outside said, Tap-toe ballet, acrobatic baton ballroom, voice, personality, and culture. And it was the Jules Stein School of Dance. He didn't teach the kids. It was one of his girl students did. And I was in that, and that got me started. And then, I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, but it was true. After that recital, he hung himself. Wow. Had nothing to do with my dancing. And then the next person in Covington who opened a dance school was Bob Ziegler, who had a dance school. He was like 18, 19 years old. And he was drafted. And I went to his school, but he was drafted. Then his teacher, Alma Tranter, came in to teach. And that's what happened for me. Because she saw me and she put me in the advanced class with the older kids
Mm-hmm.
because she said he's too fast. So then she told my mother, she said, I want him to do a solo in the recital. And we couldn't afford solo lessons. She said, no, no, you don't pay me. I teach him because he's got it and he can make a living doing this. He's gifted.
Mm-hmm.
She was the first person who validated my talent, Alma Tranter. So from there, everything, snowballed along. And and then going into high school and doing the variety shows and all that. And also, going through that stage in Kentucky, that was in the 50s. We were still segregated and all of that stuff wasn't easy. And of course, because I danced, I was fine in school until I danced in a homeroom program. And from that point on, the bullying and the name calling was just terrible. So until I graduated, I went through that. But I got my revenge because at our senior variety show, I did everything in the senior variety show. I starred myself. So all the name calling they did, I made myself a star. So when I graduated, I was going to the University of Cincinnati as a theater arts major. And that summer, I danced with the Cincinnati Zoo Opera Ballet. And that's where I met Suzanne. Her name was Susie Ficker, and she became Suzanne Farrell of New York City Ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a scholarship because of Susie, because she told her teacher, and they gave me the scholarship. Because I said, little did I know, Richard, back then, that I could have probably been paid to dance with all those ballerinas because there weren't any male dancers, in the school. But it was great training. And then Miss LaCour retired, and then Tatiana Grantsova, another woman, came in as the ballet, and she was with the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, and she used to understudy the great ballerina who taught at New York City Ballet for George Balanchine and was married to him. And I can't think of her name now. Isn't that terrible? Anyway, so that's where it goes. And it's always that. Now, in my college, and with Paul Rutledge, who was my mentor there at school. But then I go to New York. Who's the first person who gives me my first job? Juliet Prowse.
Juliet Prowse. I want to talk about this for a moment. A lot of people have a dream. They believe that they want to go beyond the borders of where they grow up and everything. But the percentages show that very few people either A, don't go beyond those borders, and if they do go beyond it, they don't, stick to it. But you did go further. How did that move to New York eventually happen for you?
Well, I was trained to go into show business. And because I was validated by that dance teacher, I took business courses in high school so I could type and take shorthand and bookkeeping so I could work in between jobs. So I was trained to do that. And I went to every school in the Cincinnati area. I performed at all the venues around there. I even went on hillbilly programs at the Grand Ole Opry, the Midwestern Hayride, the Indiana Hoedown, square dancing. You turn on the lights, and I was out there carrying on. So I got a lot of training. And then I studied, of course, voice at the College Conservatory of Music in Cincinnati. So I was trained, and I got my equity card in between college. The years of my college, and I got my equity card. So when I came to New York, I was ready to go. I was trained. I knew what I wanted to do. And so it was because of my mother understanding that. And all those little $5 and $10 bills I used to make during that period when I would perform, my mother put that in the bank. And that's what put me through college, which paid my tuition. And so when I had my first audition and my first job, I got it. And at that time, I'm bragging, but the salary then in New York to dance in the chorus, this is 1965, was $125 a week. People find that outrageous when they think. My first job with Juliet Prowse paid me $350 a week plus $400 when we got to Las Vegas.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because you get cast in your Broadway show. I love this story because here you are working with one of the greatest dancer choreographers on Broadway, Bob Fosse, and you go to him to tell him that you're leaving the show. And it was not only a financial decision, but because of a woman the woman, Juliet Prowse.
And as far as, I mean, he was very angry with me when he confronted me in front of the cast, saying, you know, we just opened the show. Now we're going to have to replace you. And I just want one good damn reason why you did this. I said, Juliet Prowse faced me 3 times what you do. And he laughed, and that was it. And thank God he didn't carry a grudge. And he put me in the film of Charity. And also, I personally was asked to dance with Gwen. And I tell you, Richard, that's one of the best compliments I've ever had in my entire life, because Gwen Verdon will never see the likes of that ever again. Gwen Verdon was a genius, and anybody who was fortunate enough to see her performance on the stage is very, very lucky. And we should all feel honored, and to have known her as a friend and as a colleague. I mean, oh my God, when we did that number for the Bob Hope special with Buddy Vest, Gwen and myself as a trio with just Bob, and us working alone for a week, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. It doesn't get better.
I also want to talk about the time frame that you arrived, because not only were you working with some of the greatest dancer choreographers in the business and some of the greatest dancers in the business, but it was the heyday of the variety specials. Yeah. And there's so many variety specials, and I love seeing you pop up in these different appearances that you were doing. How was that happening? Were you did you have an agent? Did you have a manager? Was it word of mouth? How did it happen?
Word of mouth. It started with Juliet. Through Juliet, I met many choreographers, and but you know, Bob Fosse didn't know me and hadn't worked with Juliet Prowse by then either. But then later he did, of course, with Charity. So it was just word of mouth and auditioning, and then on television dancing. When I went back with Juliet the second time, I stayed in California because her then choreographer was Tony Sharmely.
Yes,
he did the Danny Kaye show, television show. So he asked me if I would like to stay and work on the Danny Kaye show. And I said yes, because I just adored Tony Sharmely. And he spoiled me rotten because he used to like feature me in the dancing. And I just had a wonderful positive attitude as a choreographer. Like he would come in and look at us and he would say, I've got the best dancers in California. And we would have killed for him. We felt such pride being a Tony Sharmely dancer. And by the way, the first choreographer of the Juliet act was Ernest Flatt, who ended up doing the Carol Burnett show. Yes. So while I was in California in that period, I got passed along, you know, like the Danny Kaye show, the Dean Martin show, the Red Skelton show. I did the television specials. Many times I had 2 jobs in 1 week where they would share me if the work wasn't heavy. And it was really very lucrative, but it's not what I wanted to do. And then on the Carol Burnett show, I had been there for a couple of years. I wasn't advancing. I was everybody's favorite chorus dancer. But we made good money on television. Mm-hmm. I always made good money, and I always worked. And
now, when you started out, did you have a publicist?
No.
Do you know what makes a great publicist?
The contacts that they have.
I'm asking because I know one of the best publicists in the business is Harlan Boll.
Yes.
And he wanted to stop by to say hello tonight.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
That was quite a lead-in.
I'm coming out to see you, Harlan, in November. I'm going to come out, and I'm doing the one night only show in Palm Springs
at
the McCollum
Theater.
Yes. For Michael Childers.
Yes, Michael's going to be coming on the show here. I'm going to be talking to Michael.
Well, he's great, and I'm going to stay in Palm Springs for a week and see all my buddies, and then I'm going to go into L.A. and see all my buddies, and then my eldest brother's family's there, so I'm going to see all of them. So I'm coming out to get you.
Then I will come down to Palm Springs to see you, and then see you in L.A. as well.
Yes, thank you.
So, Harlan, do you remember the first time that you saw Leroy, either on stage or that you first met him?
Now, be careful, Harlan. It was dark that night, and they never proved a thing.
His pants were down. No. Honestly, I've been trying to remember. There are so many, and all of the women all of the women who could have introduced us, whether it was Carol Channing, Carol Cook, Mary Jo Catlett, Betty Bacall, Carol Lawrence, maybe.
Yes.
I mean, we've worked with so many of the same women.
Yes.
And you've had, it seems like all women have been part of your life.
Yes.
I can't think of a woman. And Gwen, there was Gwen, although I don't think Gwen introduced us. Juliet.
Dolores Gray, Cheetah Rivera. Oh my
Cheetah.
God.
Yeah.
Harlan, it's the who's who.
Yeah.
If you only knew what these hands have held.
Well, Carol Cook wanted to be here tonight. Harlan actually spoke with Carol and Tom last night, who celebrated their anniversary yesterday. But she just couldn't be here tonight. So we send our love to her. But you and Carol have such a rich history. You and both Carols.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Carol Cook wanted me very, very, very much to extend her love to you.
Well, hopefully I'll be seeing her in November.
Yeah.
And when we get together, just, bar the door because it's going to be a telethon. Because all we do is laugh. When I first met Carol, 42nd Street, and she came up to me and we had the same thing happen. I had never met Carol. I didn't know her. I mean, I knew of her, but I didn't know her. And of course, all my friends said, "Oh God, wait till you and Carol Cook get together." Oh my! And of course, first day of rehearsal, she came up to me and she said, "So, you must be Lee Roy Reams." And I said, "So, you must be Carol Channing." Oh. Every friend I have comes up to me and says, "Oh, where do you meet Leroy? You're gonna let you already hate your fucking guts." That was the first words she said to me. And we laughed, and we went to lunch that day. And during lunch, I swear to God, we were finishing each other's sentences. It was scary because I said, Carol, we've had to have known each other in a former life. From that moment on, I swear to you, the very first day of rehearsal and lunch for the entire run, we drove down in my car to Washington to the out-of-town tryout. We were together all the time. We went out every night after the show. I was in her dressing room all the time. She and I take the same size shoe.
That's right.
And she was, perfect. I could put on her shoes. They fit me like a dream. And she would bring in those big stiletto heels, like 6-inch heels. And she would throw them in the dressing room and say, "Break these suckers in. They're killing my feet." So I used to wear her high heel shoes around the theater as a joke in my robe. And I would get to the theater early every night. She would have a pot of coffee on. We would have coffee together. And by the time they called half hour, we were crying with laughter. And when I was in California for a year with the show, every night we did that. And afterward, we had dinner every single night for a year while I was in California. It's just my best girlfriend. What can I tell you?
No, she could not stop talking about you when I brought you up last night.
Oh, the funniest story. Well, and I'm sure you both know the story about the wedding with her matron of honor.
Yeah, Lucy.
Lucille Ball. She said, "What the hell was I thinking?" She said, "Lucille effing Ball," but she said she said, "Nobody looked at the bride."
Of course, Mike Stewart of 42nd Street was one of Carol's friends, and he literally wrote that part in the show for her. And one day she said to him, because she was always coming up with these cracks, she said, "Hey, Mike, did you hear the joke about the Polish actress who fucked the book writer out of town?" She would come up with these, and Mike Stewart would just, we did, I tell you, we did nothing but laugh the whole time and still do. We call each other on the phone 2 hours at the minimum, just laughing and telling stories. She's just a divine person.
Oh, she's divine. She could make anything work for her. She was the only first person I knew to bring in the hearing impaired person signing on the side into what she was doing. And she'd stop and go, "How do we know what he's saying?"
I know.
Seriously, he could be telling you all to go to hell.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and also I have to tell a personal story. Carol is one of the most generous people in showbiz.
That's true.
When she puts on that tough exterior, when you close the door, she would give you the shirt off her back.
Yeah.
And we were in Gucci one day on Rodeo Drive in California. and they had this beautiful leather dachshund, like bigger than full size. It was gorgeous in the shop. And of course, I have dachshunds and collect dachshund stuff. I'm always crazy about that. And so Millie Martin and Carol and I were in Gucci. And I saw that. I said, now, girls, I'm going to celebrate my birthday while I'm out here. And I know how busy you are, and you don't have time to run around. You just buy me that. And we laughed, and so came my birthday. And the box opened, and it was in there. And they took up a collection at the theater, but I know who paid for most of it, and it was Carol Cook. That's the kind of person she is. She is so generous and kind. She'd give you the shirt off her back.
Well, what I want to know is, how do they send those birthday cards out to everybody on the birthdays? I mean, and they arrive on the actual day of your birthday. How do they plan that? I mean, both Danny and I, on our birthdays every year, I mean, even this year, I forget that they're going to come. And on my birthday, that card arrives in the mail.
That's Tom's artwork.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tom, actually, last night, Carol discovered, Tom yelled in the background, "Your birthday card's in the mail." I said, "Thank you." And then they said something, and I said, "Carol, between you and I, he's had the date wrong all these years." And she said, "Oh, no, I have to tell him." And I said, No, it'll break his heart." And she said, "No." And she turned around and said, "Darling, you have the wrong date."
Oh. She said to Danny once, she said that she tried to help once, and Tom said, "You're screwing it all up. You put the star in the wrong place." And of course, both Carols, she was the second Dolly. She did the Australian and New Zealand tour.
Leroy, we talked about you in nauseam when I took Carol Cook, Carol Channing, and Joanne Worley up to a benefit performance of Dueling Dollies for the Arts Foundation at the time. And Carol, after I said, "Okay, Carol, Carol Channing, here's who's going to join you." And she, "Oh, great. You put me on stage with the only two people funnier than me." But all the way up, we compared people, and your name just kept coming up and up, up every time.
Well, there are certain people in your life that comes along, and you hook on. It's like, seriously, that you've known them before. You just pick up, and doesn't matter how long we don't talk. We just pick up like we had been, talking to each other the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, those ladies that you mentioned are extremely talented. And I directed Joanne in a production of Hello, Dolly, but she'd done many productions. I didn't. And she was the original standby.
Yeah.
Her understudy, I should say. Then people
No,
don't.
she prefers standby. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carol was the first person to do outside of the show. So the 3 firsts right there.
Yeah, she told me that the 3 firsts. You've worked with the 3 firsts. Yeah, she told me that Carol, after she had to show up a half hour before and everything else, and she said she'd get warmed up and everything else. She said Carol called her in one day and said, "Oh no, dear, I just want you to know you're wonderful. You're never going on, but you're wonderful."
Leroy, you have to tell the story about you flying into Vegas to see Juliet, and your night in Las Vegas with Julia Prowse.
About Sweet Charity.
Yes, Sweet Charity.
Well, of course, I did the show on Broadway, and then when I did Juliet's act after that, all I did was talk about Sweet Charity. I said, "Juliet, this is a good part for you. You've got to play this part." Well, when she was doing the Las Vegas company, I was dancing on all the variety shows. And so she called and she said, "When are you going to get your ass out to Vegas and see me?" And I said, "Well, Juliet, I'll be there on my day off." She said, "Well, come on." Well, literally the next day, there's a knock at my apartment door, and a messenger hands me an envelope and to Las Vegas. And I opened it up and I read it. And it said, "No excuses. Get your ass to Las Vegas, Juliet." So on my day off, I flew up, and her secretary, Betty, picked me up in her Mercedes and gave me the keys. I said, "Now, Juliet wants you to see the show, and I'm going to take your bags. You drop me off, and I'll get you checked in. And Juliet doesn't want to see you till after the second show. and she's got a little party planned, but she doesn't want to see you until then. I said, okay. So I went to see this wonderful, Vegas show with all the nude girls and all of that. And I went back, saw the show, and Juliet was wonderful. Then we had this little party. And after the party, I said, okay, because she has a suite. I said, so which room is mine? And she said, well, darling, there's only one bedroom. I said, so what, you got 2 beds in there? So she said, no, it's just one big king-size bed, but you could sleep with me. I said, well, okay. So, I'm a Baptist boy, so I sleep in pajamas, tops and bottoms. So I went in and I put on my little pajamas, and I went out, and Juliet had on her negligee, and she said, now, darling, I sleep nude. And I said, that's all right, Juliet. I've seen you change clothes off stage. So Juliet takes off her negligee. She's totally naked. We crawl into bed, and we're talking and laughing. And then it came time to go to bed, and I gave her a little kiss. I said, well, good night, sweetheart. I said, thank you so much, Juliet. I've had such a wonderful time. I rolled over in bed, and I looked up at the ceiling, and I said, if my friends could see me now.
And every straight man in America is hating you.
Know. All those boys in high school that used to call me all those names, if they only knew where I was, and they weren't,
And Carol is at the end of this story, so it works. And I did an induction into the Smithsonian, and 9 of my ladies were inducted: Angela Lansbury, Carol Channing, Phyllis Diller, June Lockhart, Rose Marie, Florence Henderson, Tippi Hedren, Julie Newmar, and Esther Williams, all inducted. And Esther made the comment during the open moment of asking questions. The Associated Press said, now, other than the obvious, is there anything else you all have in common? And they said, our publicist, Harlan Boll, has seen us all naked. The humor was not in the fact that every woman on stage went, yeah. And Carol popped in with, oh, no, dear, you have to understand. We're in the theater. This is normal.
Of course.
Well, the first time I saw Carol Channing totally naked was during Lorelei. And it was after the show, and I was called down for a conference. And because we did publicity things together, they were very generous. And I go down, knock on the door. Who is it? I said, it's Leroy. And Charles said, come on in. Carol's naked, but you don't care. So I walked in. She literally was stark naked, and she sat down. She covered her breast and closed her legs. But when she would talk, she would only go, now, you don't. And then she'd finish. And when she wasn't talking, she would hold her breast and close her legs. It was one of the funniest. And I had no one there but the 3 of us to share it with. And so now this is it's a little cruel, but it's funny. Fade out. We're now doing Dolly. And my associate on that show was Bill Bateman, who Carol absolutely adored. And Bill Bateman was one of the funniest people I've ever been around in my life. And he could say things to Carol that none of us could get away with. Like, when she would be warming up, he would say, honey, you better start playing a little lower than that, or you'll never get into the chorus. I mean, he would say things like that to her. And so anyway, we had a meeting one night, and the same thing happened. She was naked. Now, I would dare look at Bill the whole time because I knew if he crossed his eyes, I'd laugh. So I just kept turned away from him. And after we had our meeting and we left the dressing room, and I turned to Bill and I said, well, Bill, what did you think? He said, it makes me want to go home and iron everything I own.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, that was Bill Bateman. Now, by the way, had he said that in front of Carol, she would have laughed too.
Yes,
that's right. That's
so,
true.
Don't think that that's just something cruel. She would have laughed too, because Bill used to do things like that with her all the time. He used to call her, "Hey, what's your name?" He called her, "What's her name?" He was a funny guy.
Now, Harlan, did you ever work with Dodie Goodman?
No, I mean, I knew but did not work with.
Now, Leroy, you and we, as you know, we were very close. And to talk about working with both Carol and Dodie on Lorelei, because there's so many funny stories that we both have shared with doing this. Once I'll share a quick story, and then you'll take it from that. Dodie and I were doing an event together, And we were in the car, and the driver was speeding. We were late for the gig, and we were pulled over by a cop. And it was in the days when I was performing as Carol. And the driver pulled over, and he says, "I've got Carol Channing and Dodie Goodman in the back seat." And Dodie rolled the window down and said, "I was in Greece." And the driver says, "I recognize you, Miss Goodman," and he let us go. But you've got great stories of,
see, when I first met Dodie, it was Lorelei, and she played my mother. And again, I can't explain it to you, these women. I've known Dodie in a former life because she's from, Columbus, Ohio. And we're Midwestern people, and we just have this rapport. And of course, in Lorelei, the whole show was all about Carol. And over and over again, and Dodie one day said, "Well, if she wanted to do a nightclub act, why did she put all of us in the show?" Oh, she was so funny because, she was just being honest, because Carol couldn't stand it if she wasn't. And the only reason my part never changed, someone had to be out there while she did change clothes. And because I had nothing to do with her part of the story, that's the way that it worked out. But, oh, my God, Dodie Goodman. I went to see The Last Tango in Paris with Dodie Goodman on tour. We went to the theater with Jack Fletcher, who was the character man then in the show, and a good friend of Dodie's. The three of us went to see Last Tango in Paris. And when Maria Schneider in the film turned around, full frontal nudity, Dodie said in that voice of hers, "Jesus, what a bush." And then later in the movie, when Marlon Brando's got the butter, Dodie turned to me and said, "What's he going to do with that butter?" I tell you.
No, that's Dodie.
Myself watching that movie with Dodie Goodman.
Dodie called me up one night. She went to see Puppetry of the Penis.
With me.
She went with you. She called me up and she said, "Richard, I went to see Puppetry of the Penis, and I think you and I should go on the road with it. We should do Puppetry of the Penis one night and the Vagina Monologues the next night."
Well, she called. This is how she called me on the phone. She said, "Hi, Leroy, it's Dodie. I want to go see that show, Puppetry of the Penis. Will you and Bob take me to see that?" That's how we went. Well, I was laughing on the phone, so I said, "It's called what?" Because I hadn't even heard of it. Yes. And we went to see Puppetry of the Penis. I've never laughed so hard seeing that show with Dodie Goodman.
With Dodie Goodman.
Yeah.
One of the funniest people on the planet.
Yeah, yes, she was. And I'm telling you, she could read the phone book and make you laugh. With that cadence of her voice and her sense of humor. And so, matter of fact, the reason, Richard, she moved back to New York was because of because she had always stayed here and she was having such a good time. She said, "Oh, I'm just going to move next door." And she bought one of the apartments, so that brought her back to New York. She was just an incredible talent, a funny lady, and a lovely friend. I miss her every day. I really do.
Well, Harlan, I want to thank you for stopping by. I want to let you go so that I can wrap this up with Leroy and talk a little bit about his show that's coming up at Feinstein's 54 Below next week, and then we'll wrap up the show.
This week, honey.
This I know. Well, it's the days are coming up on us. So yes,
I have to tell you, I was the publicist for Puppetry, the Penis, Vagina Monologues, Menopause the Musical, and Wicked at the very same time. And my headboard across, because it gives dates and interviews and what's happening on the cheat sheet on the wall when we have boards. And it literally read, Penis, Vagina, Menopause, Wicked. People walk in my office and go, okay.
Well, Harlan, either in both places, I want to spend the entire evening as long as you can stand, and we'll just have a lovely time. I look forward to seeing you soon.
I'm yours.
Yes.
Great. Harlan, you're the best.
Richard, thank you for including me.
Thank you. You're the best. And we'll be in touch. Thank you for being here tonight. So, Leroy, I'm going to bring up this other screen 1 second here so that I can show everyone how this works. I am going to share the other screen. Hold on 1 second. I don't want to lose you here. So let me do this. I'm multitasking here. We're going to share the other screen. And let's see here. This is how this is done. Chrome tab. And this is the giveaway tool. Share. And its contribution. There it is. So I end the show by this is my little homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. And while we're doing this gives everyone a chance to use the hashtag contribution. And I'm going to ask you, Leroy, before we start, all of these women that we have talked about tonight, they've all added to your life. And looking back, they've all added to who you are. And looking back, what do you think is the greatest contribution as a whole that you would feel that you've gleaned from working with all these great women in the theater?
The love for a fellow human being. I think it's just as simple as that. The love that I shared with each of these women. And I have to mention Lauren Bacall.
Yes.
Because having spent those early years with her, we were just the best of friends. And she had a huge influence on who I am today. A huge influence. And all of them, along the way, they've added something. And, Mitzi Gaynor, who I hopefully will be seeing too, working with her, their professionalism. And it's just, Richard, it's the love of sharing between two human beings. And the fact that we could always be honest with one another. And I think that's why we had those close relationships, because we never patronized one another. We always spoke honestly in everything that we did, and respect. But, I was lucky because they were talented people. I from the very beginning, when I got my equity card that summer, I worked with Rita Moreno, who's still a friend today, Jane Powell, who was a friend till she passed, Patricia Morrison. I mean, it's just incredible that this teenage boy hit, but that it was just number one, I was good at what I did, as were they, and they were very professional people, and they respected other people who had that work ethic. And I think with all of these people, it's the work ethic too, Richard. They cared about what they did. They never marked a show, always giving 100%, and most times 110%. I'm just so fortunate to have had that. But I do that to myself, and I share that with all those wonderful women.
That's wonderful. The first question that I want to ask you is, how has social media changed your life?
Well, it certainly has helped during this pandemic that we've been able to, see each other and talk. Mm-hmm. And also the immediacy of the internet. For instance, we can put something on and reach a lot of people all at once, like, the streaming thing, which I've never done before. Mm-hmm. And we will be streaming on March the 11th at 7 o'clock. And you just have to contact Feinstein's 54 Below, get on their website, and you can stream the show. And that all of my family and all of my friends who can't be there can stream and watch me Friday night at 7 o'clock on the 11th, do my show. And I think that's just incredible. And then also I get to see photos on the internet, and I get to see a lot of things that people post, performances, my God, things that I didn't even think existed, even with myself. I know that recently there was me with three other dancers, Stan Mason, Bill Gusky, and Buddy Vest, singing Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better with Ethel Merman. I even forgot that I had done that, Richard. And someone said, and there it was, so it's an incredible tool, and it can also be not so nice, but not with my friends and not with what we want to do with it. We just want to share our experiences with all the wonderful people out there. And also, I think that everyone has an opinion where when people criticize, like, a show opens and you have just the major paper, suddenly everybody can post
That's
a
true.
review.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it much fairer that you can go and understand what you're going to see. It may not be your taste, but if that's your taste, then you know about it and you can go see it. The immediacy of the world is at our fingertips just by pressing a few buttons. I love that.
Wow. What is the best possible attitude that you feel that it is to have it in this business?
The attitude you have to have is loving the work and respecting the work and the people that you're working with. And I've been, knock on wood, I've been fairly lucky. I've had very few, if any, bad times because most of the people, especially in the older days, we came in with a very professional attitude, like you never missed a show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my God, if you missed a show, they didn't speak to you for 2 weeks because, and in order to go into this work that we do, you have to love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget my first day in college. Our professor, Paul Rutledge, said, if there are any of you in this room who can be happy doing anything else but this, go do that.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of you who can't do anything else but this, you're in the right place.
Absolutely. What's a TV series or a movie that you could watch over and over again?
Anything with an MGM movie. I just love the MGM movies. That's seeing those as a kid. Gene Kelly was my idol. Fred Astaire is the best dancer that ever lived. Male, female, or anything else, he's number one always.
Mm-hmm.
But Gene Kelly was the guy that I identified with. And we're both Irish. We're both born on August the 23rd. And watching Gene Kelly, I emulated him, and that was the guy that I followed. And I just love those MGM movies. Judy Garland, Sid Charisse. I mean, let's just go down, name them all. That's why I do what I do. And my first musical comedy, Richard, that I was ever involved in was when I was an early teenager, and it was the Newport, Kentucky Catholic Actors Guild, and it was Finian's Rainbow.
Wow.
And my God, that score, as a matter of fact, Thursday and Friday night at Feinstein's 54, I'm going to be doing a medley from Finian's Rainbow and talk about that time.
Oh, that's incredible. That's great.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question, and it's a sensitive subject, but we've talked about some of the people, Carol Channing, Dodie Goodman, Bob, and especially with what we've gone through in the past year, we've lost a lot of friends. We've lost a lot of people who have passed on. What is your attitude about those that we've lost and those that have passed on?
My attitude about what?
About the afterlife, about people that have passed on. And
well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I have faith that there is. Given the alternative, I would rather believe the positive.
Okay.
So I will go hoping that that we will all be together again, and that we will once again come back and complete what we started. And I mean, I think that's a nice image to have. But I don't live for the afterlife. I live for today.
Good for you.
I don't dwell on the past. I certainly talk about it, and I certainly learn from it. I certainly don't dwell on it. I can't do anything about the future but prepare for it. But I can handle myself day by day, and that's what I do. I wake up. I swing my feet over. When they hit the floor, I stand up, and I try to do something positive every day, regardless of whether it's clean out a dresser drawer, call a friend, do something positive. Every single day I do that. And I feel that as far as my career is concerned, I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet because I get to do what I do and I've made money doing it. But the most important thing is that I've shared it with all these geniuses that I read about, that I listened to in my living room, and suddenly they're my friends and I'm working with them. I've never gotten over that. I'm in awe all the time of who I know. Recently, one of my new friends is Michael Urie, who's a
Yes.
brilliant young actor, and I just saw him in Jane Anger off Broadway with his partner Ryan Spawn. They were just brilliant in this play, and this young girl wrote it who's also in the play. I just had such a good time, and I'm in awe that I go, with all the people who have passed, there's still the people coming up.
That's right.
And I'm connecting with them, and we find that we have things in common too. And
No,
it
he's
continues.
wonderful. I
We
love
make
it.
a
It's
bridge.
wonderful.
We make a bridge, Richard. That's what we have to do. We bring our experience to the young people, and they bring their experiences to us, and we continue to keep learning. I don't live in the past. I don't say, well, they never were as good as we were. No. I go to the shows. I see these young kids. My God, they sing, they dance, they act. They're tall, they're fat, they're skinny, they're different colors, and they all are so talented. And I just marvel, even though I may not sometimes understand some of the stuff, I still can appreciate it and encourage it and try to learn from it.
That's great. Well, this is going to be a difficult question, Leroy.
Yeah.
Okay, what one woman most affected the choices that you made in your career?
The most, well, Richard, I had to keep going back all the time to my mother, because my mom made it possible for me to have a happy life. I mean, she took a nickel and made it spin like a dollar to always make sure that I had clothes and that I could go to dance class. And whenever I worked, I would always say, well, how'd I do tonight, Mom? She'd say, best looking thing on that stage. She gave me that encouragement. And I think that going through all that bullying in high school, which was really just awful for most of us, I'm sure you had it too, Richard.
Yeah.
That we go through that, and that I knew that when I went home and opened the door, that someone loved me unconditionally. And that was something so important to me. And I was very lucky, as you are too. We have a lot in common, my dear friend, that also I had a man in my life, only one, who loved me unconditionally and supported me and continued. I know when my mother passed, she said to Bob, she said, take care of my little boy. And he did.
He was great.
Yeah. So, that's it. It's my mom above everything. But then listen, we go through all the stars and everything else. I learned so much from all of them and their support and love. I'm a lucky guy. I am.
Okay. Be very careful with this next question. What is your best vice?
Well, my best vice?
Yes.
Oh my God, my best vice. Well, I love to eat, Richard, unfortunately. If that's a vice, I'm not necessarily a drinker. And I do have a drink now, and then don't get me wrong, but I just love good food. And, I'm a Southern boy who was indulged that way. And being a dancer, I never had to diet because I was always working. But now in my later years, especially during this pandemic, I've probably indulged a little bit more than I should have if I have any vice. And
I'm going to make that pot roast for you. So
yes,
get ready.
Yeah. But I think that for everybody, and I say this to all the kids all the time, if you're lucky enough to know what it is that you do, or you're a parent and your child is interested in something, encourage them and push them there so that they're happy. And if we can have something that we enjoy doing and make enough money to keep us happy, I mean, it's all relative to the happiness, but doing something you love and being with the people. I mean, we could be in the jungle in a tent, and if we were all together, we would all laugh and have a good time. And that's the secret. It's all the people and the support of the family and your friends. And we choose our own families, Richard.
That's true.
You're part of my family.
Well, same here.
I mean,
for that.
No, of course you know that you are. That
Yeah.
we go, we have, and sometimes we don't like our family, but then we make our own family, and
Yeah.
we all get together and we support and help each other, and do what, Richard? What do we do mostly? Laugh.
We laugh. We laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
And
great.
all those people that we've had in our life who we laughed with. Think about it.
Oh, absolutely. Do you journal, or did you ever, or would you ever consider writing your memoir, which we're all hoping that you're going to do?
The problem with it, Richard, I have written down a draft just for my head so that chronologically I remember things and names. I'm not necessarily a gifted writer. I'm a better talker than I am a writer. And when I write, I think it's because I took too much shorthand. I have a tendency to be more clinical in my writings.
Mhm.
And I have written, but I think I just need help. I'd love to have a publisher, number one, who would make the work worthwhile to do, and then have them give me an editor who can sit down with me and decide what I need to cut out and what I need to embellish and where I need to talk more about. I need someone professional there. And unfortunately, I haven't, and I don't know whether, I'm not that important that people will know who I am. But I also, it's very important when I write the story, besides all the fabulous people I've worked with in those stories, I want to tell my story about being a homosexual and having grown up in Covington, Kentucky, and what I had to deal with and what has happened in our history that has prepared us for what we do and the success that we've had. Because it wasn't always easy when guys had to pretend to be straight and all of that. I was lucky that I didn't have to do that. I certainly had to be careful about it. I didn't carry signs walking down the street because I never felt that was what it was all about. But the fact I never thought I'd ever be able to be married to a man, and that happened in my lifetime. I'm so proud of that. And the fact that we've all come around to trying to understand we've still got a way to go. I don't want it to be that it's so easy, but it can be if we all just love one another. And as far as actors, we should be able to play anything we want, regardless of your color or your sexual identity. As long as you can act and play the part and make it feasible, then that's what we should be allowed to do.
Absolutely.
And not be chastised or categorized or stereotyped for not doing anything else. I mean, let's just talk. It's not about, and also it's not about competing with everybody. Richard,
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
It's creating. Let's stop competing all the time.
Thank you. That's the conversation I've been having with a lot of people lately. So thank you for saying that. I want to ask you, speaking of which, is there one aspect of the business that you are weak in?
Well, I mean, it depends. I've studied very hard to be an actor who dances and sings, and I feel that I would be just as good in a straight play or just as good in a singing role. I can't dance the way that I used to anymore, so that's beside the point. And I like to direct and choreograph. I think I feel that I should have done more of that. And I know my professor at school, because my senior and junior year, I did the musicals at school, and he thought that's where I was going to succeed. He thought I was going to be a director choreographer, but I like performing too much. So if that's one thing that I wish that I had done more of. But it was easier for Tommy Toon because Tommy, number one, is so talented and so unique that he can get away doing that. Somehow, when I started directing and choreographing, everyone thought I didn't want to act anymore. And I much prefer being on the stage, only because of the camaraderie of the people. So, gosh, I can't think of a weakness, Richard. That sounds egotistical.
No.
Too bad, but no, I can do it all.
And this is my last question for you. What activities outside of the business give you purpose?
Antique shopping. Until I don't do it anymore, because after Bob passed, we had a 3-car garage upper floor filled with shelves and all this stuff and trying to get rid. I certainly have cured myself of that habit, but I just loved antique shopping and going to flea markets and doing that. That was a great hobby for me, and also my love of dogs. I love dogs and dachshunds. I'm now dogless, and I'm hoping that I'm going to go to Ireland in July, and I'm going to go to California in November, and hopefully by Christmas I'm going to be able to get myself 1 or 2 weenie dogs.
Oh, I love that. Well, hold on for just a moment. We're going to give away a little gift here, and I'm going to show you how this works. I draw that here. My hands go up here so everyone knows. I have nothing to do with pulling the name, and we'll see who is going to be our winner tonight. Pico, I don't know who that is. So please send an email to richard@richardskipper.com. Again, that's richard@richardskipper.com, so that I will get this to you. And then I'm going to go here. Don't go anywhere for a moment, Leroy. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Leroy, I just adore you, and I'm going to reach out to you, and we're going to have that pot roast dinner soon. Danny has a birthday coming up, so we'll plan around that.
I hope so.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know that I can speak for Leroy when I say this. We don't take it lightly when you show up for us in this business. So the fact that you showed up tonight means a lot. If this is your first time at Richard Skipper Celebrates, I hope it will not be your last. My goal is to celebrate artists and their body of worth. So please subscribe, leave a comment, share this with your friends. Check out these artists. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the 7th name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. As my dear friend Sean Moniger says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. So, Leroy, I'm going to leave the screen, and I'm going to give you the final word. Anything you want to say about anything that we talked about tonight that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching. Don't worry about how to end. As soon as you say goodbye, the credits will roll. I love you so much.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you so much for having me part of this, and thank you for being in my life. I love you, Richard.
Well, I love you too, and you got the final word. It's all yours.
Well, I just say, number one, if you're not doing anything Thursday or Friday night, come on down to Feinstein's 54 Below at 7 o'clock, and I'm going to be saying goodbye Kentucky, hello Broadway, sharing some stories and singing, and hopefully we'll have some fun people in the audience. And I think that's what it's all about, sharing our lives with one another and enjoying every single day. Don't let all of this negativity and the isolation get on the telephone, Facebook, Zoom. Keep in contact with people. Respect everybody. We have the best and we have the worst here in New York City, but we have the best. And let's just accent that and continue to do so, and appreciate and love your friends and your dogs and your family, and enjoy the time that you have, and let's not waste a moment, to quote my very dear friend Jerry Herman. Goodbye.